Good morning, friends. This is Colleen with yarnwars.com, and today we are working on another dress scarf. I'm having a little bit of fun with these dress scarves, so you're going to have to bear with me because there's a couple more to come. For this project, we are going to be working this similar, not the same, but similar to the first scarf we made with a different outcome. We'll be using a couple of the same techniques, such as the puff stitch, but just a regular puff stitch. We'll be using the same weight of yarn, so you want to look for a 3 or a 4 weight. You just want something nice, light, and airy. I'm going to be using this Red Heart Unforgettable yarn. I love working with this yarn. It's a little painful if you have to rip something out. But we are going to be making it again. It will be an infinity and it will be a dress scarf. So we are going to keep the width quite short here. So we'll start out with a chain of, let's see, I'm going to start with a chain of 14, and you can work, because our first row after our chain is going to be a row of half double crochet. So you can work a half double crochet foundation row of 13. That will be our magic number. Or you can do the chain, which I'm going to do right now. We will be using our K hook, again, the same, and that is a 6.5 millimeter hook. You'll want this, you'll want your thread or your yarn, you'll want a blunt needle to hide in your last 2 tails, unless you're changing colors and then more tails, and a pair of scissors or little snippers if you have them. So we'll go ahead and make our slip knot. You will make this by crossing over, making yourself a loop there, and pulling this working tail up the back of that yarn so you can see it through your hole. Let's try this again. I just made that complicated. Yarn over here and put that up the back here. And then you're just going to put your hook in and through like that. Grab your 2 ends, give it a tug, and tighten it up on your hook. I'm going to chain 14. And you can work right into these chains here like you normally would on a lot of the projects, just by going into those chains. However, I'm going to work on the back spine of these chains, these little bumps, and I showed that in the other video too. If you've worked the last video, scarf, I also have a standalone on working into the back to give you a neater finish at the end of your project. But if you're going to be working the front chain, you want to work by, we're going to be working a full row of half double crochets starting into the second chain from the hook. So there's our first chain, and there's our second chain. And if you're working the bumps on the back, you're going to work into the second bump first. So there's 1, there's 2. We're going to work half double, so that's yarn over, go into this spine or bump on the back of your stitch, yarn over and pull through. And then you'll yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook for a half double crochet. And you're going to do this into each stitch following down the row. Your foundation chain is going to be probably the most annoying of all of your rows to work here, just because it's the starting row and there's not a lot to it. So get down this. And when we get to the end of this, we're going to have a total of 13 chains, or 13 stitches. So 13 will be, like I said, it will be our magic number for all of our rows. Make sure that at the end of each row you have a total stitch count of 13. regardless of what row you're on. And you really don't need a stitch marker for this. You can use one if you like. We're coming into our last two. And I know a lot of people don't like working with the unforgettable. A lot of people find it to be forgettable. It is kind of a painful yarn to work, but it has and produces such beautiful results. So there's our... Okay, so I'm sure you're noticing the difference in color. I got partway through a project and snagged this, and I was partway through my video, so I am starting from the beginning here. Luckily, you don't have to see this whole mess that I did here. So there's a different color starting chain than the one I just did in video, but I got to the end of this, and we are with our magic number of 13 stitches. This is one of the things about the unforgettable yarn is I absolutely love it. I love the color. I love working with it. But if you mess something up, if you have to take anything out, if you have to do anything, you are at risk of breaking your yarn. So when we finish our first row of half double crochets, we are going to chain 2, turn our work towards us, and we're going to do a row of double crochets here now. So right into that first stitch, we're going to work our first double crochet. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over and pull through. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops on the hook, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops on your hook. So you have your first double crochet. And we are going to work a double crochet into each of the stitches down this row, which will give us a total of 13 double crochets when we've completed this. Once you start working the scarf and you get past one of the sections of this pattern, you're going to find that this goes so much quicker. It's just a very flimsy yarn. It's not like your typical Red Heart, Super Saver, or Burnett, Super Value yarn, or Karen. I'm not even sure if I said that right. But in the beginning it might be a little bit slow going. So we are coming into the end of our double crochet round, or row. Okay, and make sure like you come to the end here, you know, turn that, you'll see that your stitch is right there. So you're going to yarn over and go into that stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. You've completed your row of double crochets. So in our next row, what we're going to do is we will chain 2, turn our work towards us. So what we're going to do here, and this is just to give it a little fuller of a look. We could do just row straight across in the stitches of half double crochets, but we're not going to do that. We're going to work a half double crochet into our first stitch. Remember, pulling through all 3 loops. And that is this stitch right here. What we're going to do into this stitch is we're going to work a front post half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to come in and through, we're going to yarn over, pull through, and then we'll yarn over and pull through all of those loops on the hook. And you'll see why we're doing this in a second with our next row. But this next one, we are going to work a back post half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to come in and through the back, yarn over and pull through, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 for a back post half double crochet. And this is what's going to give the scarf kind of a little bit of a thickness and just all around give it that dimension. It'll look nice when you're finished, and you'll see, and just the feel of it is really nice. So we're just going down this row, going front post, half double, back post, and the next stitch all the way down our row. And then when we reach the end, we started this row with 1 half double crochet into that first stitch. We are going to end the row with a half double crochet into our last stitch. So just continue down. And we should have a total of 6 front posts when we're finished. So we're going to do this last one right here. And we can pull through there. And then you're going to have a stitch at the end here. Right there. We're going to work our last, we're going to work a half double crochet into this last stitch. This is actually coming down the side here, or down the back, in red heart unforgettable fashion. All right, so this is what we have when we've completed this. We have a total of 6 front posts. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to turn our project towards us here. In this first to start, we are going to work a row of half double crochets down, just a total row of half doubles. So we're just going to come down the row real quick and work a half double crochet starting in that first stitch into each stitch down the row. And you'll have a total of 13 when you're finished. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, and then our last stitch here for 13. You can see it's coming forward here, so you need to pull that up a little bit. Come in and work your last half double crochet. Okay. So this is our wrong side facing us right now. Tail is on the right. Now we're about to work our right side. We are going to chain 2, 1 and 2, turn our work towards us, which is putting us on the right side of our project. Okay, so we are going to start with a half double crochet into that first stitch right there, half double, and then we're going to work right into this post here. So we're working down towards the bottom of this post, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually come into this area right here, and we're working around. We're working a puff stitch. So we're coming in to that and down. So we're working the lower portion of the bottom of that, and we're going to pull up once, yarn over, go back in there, pull up twice, yarn over, go back in there one more time, pull through, and we'll have 7 loops on our hook now. You're going to yarn over and you're going to pull all the way up and through the loops on that hook. And then we're going to go into our next stitch with a half double crochet. All right. It's a little more difficult than it needed to be. So basically what I'm doing is I'm using this to keep me down in the lower section. You can work the lower part of this if you want, but I'm kind of going into this stitch with my front post puff stitch. I'm coming into this section and coming down so that I'm working around the double, and I'm pulling up and I'm yarning over, going back in and pulling up, and you want to make sure these are even as you're going, and over, coming, pulling up. This is going to go a lot faster for you too when you're working it after you've done a couple of these. And then we're going to come into our next stitch here, which is actually right here. We're going to work a half double crochet. So we've done our second one. And like I said, you can go in right directly under if you want as well. You can come down here and just work right through there. I'm only doing this for my own purposes. It's not important though. Just kind of locks it into where I want to be. So, coming and making another puff stitch. Which is 3 times, giving you 7 loops on your hook, and then yarning over and pulling through. You're kind of pulling up as well. And then going into that next stitch, following with a half double. Coming into our next one, working into our next front post, and making a front post puff stitch again. And I'm going to go through this pattern 2 times, 2 repeats, so that you can just see one more time after we're done here. And then we're going to come into our next stitch with a half double. You'll see which stitch is the next stitch. We got that one, and half double. We're going to come in and work our next front post puff stitch. And I'm going to do slower for my last one just so that I can really walk you through this puff stitch I'm doing. It's really easy. You see where your next stitch, and this will be your half double. And we have 1 more puff stitch to make. So all I'm doing with this puff stitch is I'm working down in the lower section of my puff stitch. So I'm just, on this last one, actually, looks like it'll be easier for me to just go down into the lower section. So I'm just going to come down here. Oh, I can do that. I'm coming down and through that double right there. Coming up, down and through, coming up. And in my next row, this is not going to be as confusing. I do apologize. This first row is kind of hard to get pictured here, but then we're working a half double into that last stitch. Okay. So this is your end result here. What we're going to do now is we are going to chain 2, 1, 2, turn our work towards us, go into that first stitch with a half double, and every stitch following. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay, so once we've gotten to this part, we're going to chain 2, and we're going to starting into our first chain right here, our first stitch here, we're going to work double crochets down the row. So we're repeating our double crochet row. And we'll make sure real quick we've got our 13, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. Okay, so when we get to the end of this row, we're going to chain 2, turn our work, and we're going to start by working a half double crochet into that first stitch. And working this half double crochet into the first and then into the last stitch as well down here helps us to stay consistent for when we flip over and we make our next row of clusters. So as you remember, we skipped this post right here and we're working a front post double crochet or half double crochet into this stitch right here. So working half post, and then we're coming into the next one with a back post half double crochet, and then we're just repeating that all the way down the line. Front post, back post, front post, back post. So far we have 2 front posts. Now we're coming into our next for a third front post half double. And then we're going into our next one. Don't miss one because they start kind of trying to push together with a back post half double. And into our next one with a front post. So we've got 4 front posts right now, and then our back post, and then our front, and then our back, We've got 5, so we make our front post half double, and then we go ahead and work our last stitch, half double crochet into that last stitch, right? So this is where we're at right now. We are on our back side because our tail is on our right side. And I'm going to grab just a bunch of yarn here. Hopefully I can just start working off of this. There we go. So once we get to the end of this row, we're going to chain 2, turn our work to the other side, and this is where we're at right now. We start by making our half double crochet into our first stitch. So we're going to work right into that first stitch, a half double crochet, and then we're working our cluster, our front post puff stitch right around here. So now this one, the difference is that we don't have a row of half double crochets in between. So we're just come down to the middle section here and work your puff stitch. So your puff stitch row is going to get a lot easier from here. Remember, you're going in 3 times, yarning over and going in 3 times, then yarning over and pulling through all of those 7 loops on the hook. And then we're coming right in to make a half double crochet into our next stitch following. And that's our back post on the other side. We're going to make another puff stitch right here. And just make sure that those loops are even, that you're kind of getting so that your puff stitch looks right. And then pulling through all. See how that worked out right there? I don't like that. And I don't want that for my puff stitch. And if I wasn't doing this in front of the camera, I'd be going probably a little quicker, but I'd be getting it more even. So you just want to make sure that you don't have loose loops in your puff stitch. You want it all to be pretty consistent there. So give it a little tug with every time you loop over and pull through, and then yarn over, pull through all the loops there, because it's going to be a little bit loose anyway. That one. And so we're working a half double crochet. So we know which stitch we're going into next, and I'll show you. We worked a half double crochet. So when we work this puff stitch here, this is the stitch for that. So we're going to be working our half double crochet into this stitch. So you kind of have to pull back and see where was the last place was that you worked your last half double crochet, because basically this part we're not going to be working. We'll be working the puff stitch and we'll be working our half double crochet into that. So we're going to come down, work our puff stitch. I'll show you what I mean here. Pull through all those loops, and then you'll come back here, and we're not going to work into this one, but into this one, a half double crochet, because the one before it is our puff stitch. So we don't want to throw off our stitch count anywhere. Okay, got a little loose there. But you're just going to continue working your puff stitch down the road. You don't have to, you don't have to stick with me to do this. If you're comfortable, go ahead and just work your puff stitches. I'm going to finish this row and look over my camera to do it. And pull through and work our half double into our next stitch. Then we're going to come back, work our next puff into the front post. And then our half double crochet. And you'll just get used to where these stitches sit, so you don't have to keep pulling it forward to check where to put your next half double. But we're going to just go ahead and work our last puff stitch here. And then you'll want to work your half double crochet into your last stitch there. Okay, so we've got another row of our puff, front post puff stitches. Okay, and next what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2, and we're going to work a row of half double crochets across to kind of pull that all back in shape there. So I want you to look at how your puff stitches look right now. They're kind of coming forward and not really formed well. So let's work a row of half double crochets. We're going to work right into that first stitch there. Remember, 13 half double crochets in this row. 2. And some of these want to go forward, so they are pulling forward, you know that. So there's 3. There's 4. This half double crochet row kind of ties everything together from everything we've done in our previous row. Okay, come on. And after you've repeated this row a couple times, there's nothing to it. You guys will race through it. And you'll be building this scarf a lot quicker than trying to determine where your next stitch goes. Okay. So we got this one. And then we've got this one. And we've completed our row of half double crochets. When I turn this around, now you can see what that has done. It has really pulled all of our stitches in together, and it's giving it that beautiful loopy, just really pretty look, the ring kind of look. Okay, so your row of puff stitches is going to look a little off when you finish working it, but then once you chain 2 at the end of that row and work your half double crochets along the next row of puffs, of the puff stitches above that, you're just pulling it all in together and giving it a real fancy pretty look. So the next row you're going to do is a row of double crochets. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and do another row of repeat with you just to get you going, and you can work each of the rows on your own. I'm going to get you started on each row. I think we've done enough of this where you can complete a row after we get it started. So I'm going to go ahead and start each row, and we'll go through a complete section, and then you'll just continue on doing that same thing over and over again, repeating that until you've grown your scarf to your desired length. So for our next row, we're going to chain 2, turn our work towards us, and work a row of double crochets starting with that very first stitch there. You just work down the row. Each stitch has a double crochet. Finish this row, go ahead and pause, and then when you hit play, we will be to the end of this row. So we have reached the end of our double crochet row. Moving on to the next row, we're going to chain 2, turn our work. We're going to start into that first space right there. In that first stitch, we're going to make a half double crochet. And then skipping that first post right there, this first one, because that is in fact our first half double crochet, or right over that, we're going to work a front post, half double crochet right around this next one. Then we work a half double crochet, back post, half double crochet around this next one. And then a front post, half double crochet around the next. And then a back post, and continue down the row, alternating between front post, back post, half double crochets until you reach the end, and then you'll work a half double crochet into your very last stitch. I will meet you at the end. Okay, I'm just jumping back at the end of this last row that we've been working. We have our last front post right here. Half double crochet. And then into the last stitch, like I mentioned, we're going to work a half double crochet into that last stitch. And make sure you're working into the stitch. So we will chain 2 at the end of this row, turn our work, and now we're working our puff stitch row. We will work a half double crochet into the first stitch, and then into this first, which is our front post, because it's coming towards us, we're going to work our puff stitch. So yarn over, insert, hook through, yarn over, pull through. 3 loops on hook, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through. 5 loops on hook, yarn over, one more time, pull through. 7 loops on hook, pull through all. Make sure that you're not going into the puff stitch with your half double crochet, that you're working it into the next stitch right before you work your next puff stitch, which is going to be right here. So we're working another puff stitch, and continue doing this down the row, working a puff stitch and then following with a half double crochet into the next stitch, half double crochet. I will meet you at the end. You will have 6 puff stitch when you complete this. Just remember, you're skipping that next post, working into the one that's coming towards you. And I will meet you at the end where we will start our next row. Okay, we're just coming into the end of the puff stitch round. We're going to work one more of these puff stitches right here, and then we're going to end this, remember, with a half double crochet into the last stitch. So we're going to go ahead and do this, pull through all 7, and then work a half double crochet into your last stitch. Oops, right there. So we just completed our puff stitch round, and we're moving on to the next. We're going to chain 2, turn, and starting with that first stitch right here, right there, we're going to half double crochet into each stitch across. Continue down the row with half double crochets until you have a total of 13 half double crochets, and you've completed this row. I will meet you at the end. So we've reached the end. We just worked our last half double crochet into our last stitch here, and then we're going to chain 2, and we're going to go back to our double crochet round where we're working 1 double crochet in each stitch down. This is our scarf. This is how it's looking, and this is how it's going to look continued to the end. It's just beautiful. Such a pretty, very fashionable look, very classy look. So this would be beautiful worked as an infinity scarf or just as a standalone scarf. You can make it a 36 inch, a 72 inch. You could triple it if you wanted to. But what you want to remember to do throughout each of your rows is maintain that 13 stitch. If you veer off, accidentally short yourself out a stitch, that's really going to mess up your pattern. So just make sure that you stay consistent. I'm going to sign off for now. Go ahead and continue to grow your scarf. Again, the description contains each of these rows for you to repeat. They contain all of the repeat rows. It doesn't contain the beginning of the pattern that we started with. We started a little bit different. We did that in the video though. So just for your repeat rows, that's going to be down in the description, along with where you can download and print off a written pattern, or you can follow it along on the website if you do prefer a written pattern over the video. But when we come back, we're going to work together to close this off if it is going to be an infinity scarf. I'll have this completed then, and we'll see you in just a bit. Okay, so we have reached the end. I have reached the end of what I'm making here, the end of my skein, and it would have gone a little longer if I didn't mess up and use up quite a bit of my yarn. You want to finish with, well, if you want to work the clothes I'm going to show you, you want to finish with a row of half double crochets. And I finished with 2 rows of half double crochets because that puts me at a start with my front side to front side, so I'm working my back sides. So it's really up to you how you want to do your closure. If you want to just stitch it closed, that's fine. I'm just going to show you a different way. And basically what you want to do is make sure that you have this all laid out correctly so that you can come back with it and put your 2 front sides together. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get our hook back in here. Now the closure I'm going to show you is just going to give you a real pretty seam finish, and it's going to make it a little harder to be able to see your actual clothes. But here we have our tail from the very beginning, and we've got our front side to front side. Again, we're working our with a back or the wrong side facing us, and then also the wrong side on the opposite side facing out. So we're just working a row of slip stitches, but we're doing this a little differently here. What we're going to do, and this is the same finish that we used in the first scarf that we did, but we're just going to come up. This is the stitch, this part on top here. And this is the back of the stitch, this little piece on the back here. Each of them have one. And how I'm going to do this, and it gives you a little more secure close, but we're going to come up in both of these and only the front loop of this stitch. So the back of the stitch and the front loop of the stitch, and then we're going to come in to the back loop on this side of our stitch. So coming into the back loop of that first one, and we're going to pull through all of those, and then this one as well, to create a slip stitch. And then we'll go into our next one, come up, and only through that front loop of the stitch, so the back part of the stitch and your front loop of the stitch. And then we're going into that next one, into just the back loop only, and going through all 3 and pulling up. Okay, now I'm going to look over the camera and do this. So we're coming up through the back into the front loop only, into the back loop of the other side of the scarf, pulling through all 3, and then our last one for another slip stitch. So we're going to do this all the way down the row. And like I said, coming up this back one is going to give it more secure close. And that's why I like to start in the spine section of my beginning chain. At the beginning of the project, I showed you how I went into that spine instead of right directly into the chain, because it allows me to go into just that back loop when I'm finishing this off. And this will go really quick, not being in front of a camera, but just go down the line and go into each of your stitches, pull through. And like I said, you can close this off however you like. If you want to just stitch it closed, you can do that as well. This just gives you a kind of a pretty finish to it, makes it a little less noticeable on where your start and end is to this scarf. And make sure that you have your stitches lined up so that you're working each stitch right across from each other. In there. So we'll get to the end and I will show you what we have at the end. Into that front loop only. And we've reached our last one, which is gonna give me a little trouble here. Let me get this. Gonna come into this back part here. It does want to give me some trouble. I haven't had this problem yet, but there is a first for everything. You can work it out. Into the front loop only, and then into just that back loop of your last stitch. And pull through all of those. And then we're going to go ahead and do a chain 1, and this is going to be just kind of our locking stitch right here. And we're going to cut that off. So when we get to the end, I'm flipping this the right way. It has just kind of a little stretch to it, and it does, I mean, you can see it, but it's just really a nice finish on that. Now, of course, I know a lot of you will want to you might want to do a round of slip stitches down the side or single crochets or whatever you like to do to finish that off. I like to just leave my scarves just as is. I don't care about the perfect edges for it because it gives it a little bit of its own flavor. And then you're gonna, of course, like you would with any other scarf, you're going to take your tail and you're just gonna wind in the back and just hide it off throughout. You don't have a lot of hiding you have to do with this. So just go to where you feel comfortable, like you feel like you've really locked that in place, and get rid of that. And we'll do the same to the other side as well. So basically that's the end of this. I hope you've enjoyed this. This makes such a beautiful scarf at the end. You can make it as long as you like, you know, like we had talked about earlier for doubling over. I would say a good 72 inches is what you're looking for on just a double over on this scarf. And, you know, 36 inch for just going around once is fine, or even a little more than that. You really make it whatever size you like. But this works really well with the Unforgettable yarn. I find I love, like I just really like working with it. A lot of people don't, and if you don't, you'll find your favorite yarn for this project. but it comes out really nice. And I will go ahead and, as I said here, this is our end here, but it just makes a really pretty scarf, and it's perfect dress wear scarf. You can make it even thinner than this or longer if you like. But the point is, you just want to remember to start your starting chain with an odd number. So use an odd number, or I mean, start it with an even number. We started with 14 chain, and then that will give you an odd stitch count for each of your rows, which, like we have here, 13 is our stitch count. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. I've enjoyed working with you today. So if you'd like to be the first to know when something new comes out, another video tutorial, please subscribe to my channel here, and again down in the directions or in the description area of this video, you will find all of the repeat rows in here from when we went off camera and grew our scarf. And we have a Facebook group. It's at Yarn Wars on Facebook. You go to www.facebook.com/groups/Yarn Wars, and we have thousands and thousands of members over there. Tons of creatives going on over there all the time. Fun free patterns that people share with the group. Make new friends and get all the support you'll ever need. Yarnwars.com. If you come over to the website and subscribe, you will also be the first to know when a new Yarn Wars pattern comes out, or tips and tricks. But we like to post our videos for every one of our patterns, if we're able to help give you that other alternative if you struggle with reading patterns. And again, thank you so much for joining me today, guys. You have a wonderful day and happy yarning.